of Hollywood's like, yep, let's make her a thing, let's make her a thing. But she's never made a movie that's been successful.
The internet is not my biggest fan. It never has been, but it especially isn't these days. I've made some stupid choices.
After weeks of backstage speculation, whispers, and growing industry backlash, Rachel Zegler has finally addressed the unraveling of the Evita revival. True to her style, she isn't taking the blame. Instead, she is reportedly pointing fingers at the very production she once lauded.
What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea what she's doing.
I don't need your business. Thanks.
To all the people who are up in my DMs trying to guess what character I'm playing, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to answer your DMs. Let's address the elephant in the room. I'm the hottest person in the world.
That's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Zegler claims that the rehearsal process was toxic and emotionally damaging, stating, "There are lots of people to thank for this video. Spoiler alert, none of them bought a ticket." Sources close to the situation indicate that Zegler now views the fallout from Evita not as a consequence of her own alleged behavior, but as a result of what she describes as an unwelcoming, overly critical, and creatively stifling environment.
Lots of people to thank for this video.
Spoiler alert!
None of them bought a ticket.
If there is a meltdown occurring, some say she is placing the blame squarely on the production team. This latest shift in narrative is raising eyebrows, particularly among those familiar with the behind-the-scenes drama. Rather than addressing persistent reports of clashes with director Jjaime Lloyd, ignoring staging cues, and even walking out of rehearsals, Zegler is reportedly reframing her experience as one shaped by systemic dysfunction. As the CEO of IBM once said, "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain."
CEO of IBM.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Zegler feels she was set up to fail, according to an insider. She has expressed concerns about egos in the room, outdated hierarchies, and a tone that left no space for emotional safety. Another source claimed she confided in friends that she felt gaslit and micromanaged during technical rehearsals, questioning whether she should have ever signed on to the project.
The Snow White re-release film averaged $50 per movie theater, which is less than 4 tickets.
However, not everyone is convinced. The timing of her remarks has led to speculation that this may be less about truth and more about strategic deflection. Her statement surfaced just as rumors intensified that Jjaime Lloyd, once her most vocal supporter, had grown frustrated with her behavior and began exploring backup casting options.
I'm a very talented, capable individual. I'm here for a reason. I can do it.
The Snow White re-release film averaged $50 per theater, which is less than 4 tickets, marking yet another attempt to shift focus away from her on-set conduct and back to the familiar narrative of Rachel Zegler as the misunderstood artist navigating a cold and unsupportive system. What makes this pivot even more intriguing is how quickly the narrative has changed. Not long ago, Evita was touted as a passion project for Zegler, a role she publicly gushed about, calling it transformative and a lifelong dream. Now that same process is being described in starkly different terms, with phrases like emotionally unsafe and creatively stifling emerging from unnamed sources close to the actress.
But after Rachel Zegler got lambasted for being the reason the film flopped, and she is the reason the film flopped, now I don't think that there was a ton of appetite for the film in general, but I think it had a fair shot at least breaking even.
For some observers, this change in tone signals damage control rather than a revelation. According to individuals familiar with the production, tensions began early and escalated quickly, with missed cues, abrupt exits, and increasingly strained energy among cast and crew. At the center of it all, several sources say, was Zegler. While she now points to a toxic culture as the root of the show's struggles,
It's kind of sinking in more and more that tomorrow is happening and the trailer is coming out. But it's hard. And it's lonely. It's very lonely. I just know that if that loneliness can exist, so can other things, and I will be okay.
others insist it was her own reported conduct that fractured the production's rhythm from day one. Allegations surfaced that Zegler frequently arrived late to rehearsals, sometimes accompanied by a small entourage, offering vague explanations that felt more performative than sincere. One castmate recalled her walking in and saying, "Sorry, I'm just emotionally overloaded today," only to question everything Jjaime said, from blocking to character tone.
So I've got my Baymax blanket, which I use when I have anxiety.
Jjaime Lloyd, a director widely respected for maintaining a focused and collaborative process, was reportedly forced to shift from directing to diffusing tensions. Insiders claimed he spent more time managing emotional dynamics than fine-tuning the production. Multiple team members described Zegler's feedback sessions as unusually intense. Instead of accepting notes, she reportedly questioned their intent, challenged directorial choices, and even altered her vocal delivery during songs that had already been locked in.
If I was a Hollywood executive, I would blacklist her.
After Zegler faced backlash for being the reason the film flopped, some argued that while there may not have been a strong appetite for the film, it had a fair shot at breaking even. Every adjustment sparked discussions, with what were meant to be clear notes becoming drawn-out negotiations. While artistic debate is part of any production, several individuals noted that the sheer volume of pushback slowed the process and tested the patience of the entire company. According to production insiders, the tipping point came during a critical ensemble run-through when Zegler allegedly refused to perform the final scene unless the lighting was adjusted to suit her emotional intention.
I'm gonna be on a talk show tonight and I'm gonna talk shit about them on the talk show. Talking shit on the talk show. This is the one time in my life where if you have something to say, I don't want to hear it.
This request halted the rehearsal entirely, prompting a closed-door meeting between the lighting designer, stage manager, and Jjaime Lloyd. As tensions grew, morale among the cast reportedly dropped. Some ensemble members requested to be repositioned on stage to avoid direct interaction with Zegler, while others asked for microphone-level changes, claiming her vocal improvisations were overpowering the group. She was doing her own thing vocally, said one chorus member, which made it hard to stay in sync.
What would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it.
I'm getting on across the block here. Yeah, hold on.
All right.
Despite attempts to maintain cohesion, insiders described the environment as increasingly strained, where small issues escalated into significant problems, disrupting the usual rhythm of rehearsals with unpredictability. Zegler's current narrative starkly contrasts with the experiences of others involved. While she describes a harmful work culture, many allege that the atmosphere became reactive and unstable due to her actions. The label of toxic has been attributed more to a lack of consistency and escalating friction rather than an oppressive environment. This isn't the first time concerns have been raised about Zegler's approach to conflict. Similar critiques emerged during the tumultuous Snow White press tour, where she reframed criticism as bias or oppression.
I don't know if I've ever explained before. I was cast in West Side Story on January 9th, 2019. 1919, so 19's my lucky number. That probably interests no one, but it's interesting to me, so bye.
Now, with Evita, it appears she is employing the same strategy. But theater insiders, less swayed by fan culture and more grounded in the process, are less willing to accept this framing without scrutiny. They argue that accountability is integral to the craft, and deflection, no matter how artfully packaged, does not alter the reality of what transpired on stage.
I think that's really important that you see me as a human being, because I think a lot of people don't. So, I don't know.
During the press tour for Snow White, Zegler offered a modern interpretation of the classic story, raising questions about the central romance and advocating for a fresh perspective. While some appreciated her candor, others felt her commentary dismissed the original film's legacy. In the aftermath, she framed the backlash as part of broader discussions on gender representation and progress, suggesting that criticism reflected deeper cultural discomfort rather than her personal views. In the case of Evita, sources indicate she is now invoking the language of creative oppression to recast her role in the show's unraveling. One insider noted that she described the rehearsal space as emotionally unsafe, but for others, it was simply a structured rehearsal room. The theater world, particularly on the West End, relies on discipline, collaboration, and repetition, leaving little room for improvisation or unilateral choices. When a performer resists that process, it affects not just them, but the entire ensemble. Zegler reportedly took criticism personally, reacting as though she was being singled out when adjustments were suggested. This signals a misunderstanding of how ensemble theater functions, where cohesion is essential. If Zegler felt stifled or overwhelmed, sources argue it wasn't by an oppressive system, but by the very standards that other cast members adhered to without issue. Despite her attempts to shift the narrative in her favor, insiders maintain that the production's struggles stemmed from her unpredictable conduct. As discussions about potential replacements began to surface, Jjaime Lloyd, once a strong supporter, reportedly limited his direct communication with her, funneling feedback through the stage manager or his assistant. This disengagement from the lead is a significant red flag in the theater world, indicating a serious rupture in trust. The situation escalated during a contentious rehearsal when Zegler allegedly refused to accept blocking adjustments, challenged lighting design, and exited mid-session without explanation. These moments, while not dramatic, formed a pattern that production staff found challenging to navigate. Lloyd, known for his emotionally grounded directing style, found himself managing emotional dynamics rather than focusing on the production itself. As ticket sales began to slow and fan chatter cooled, the tone shifted from optimism to damage assessment. The question became less about how to make the show great and more about how to salvage what could be saved. The theater industry, particularly in the West End, is small, and reputation travels fast. While publicists can manage headlines, word of mouth among stage managers, directors, and casting consultants carries significant weight. Zegler's upcoming projects, including a low-budget indie, may still hold meaning, but for someone once seen as Hollywood's next great leading lady, it feels like a step down. The absence of major production announcements bearing her name raises questions about her future. As the industry watches, the next step is crucial. Will Zegler evolve or double down on her narrative? The applause comes not from being understood, but from delivering a performance that surprises everyone. The question remains, is Rachel Zegler spiraling, or is she finally being held to the same standard as her peers?